I'm Kimberly,
Hi, I'm Ruben.
and this is our love story.
Well, how long have we been dating?
Well, we were dating for 2 years, and then we were engaged a year. We eloped and got married in Hawaii, and we've been about to be 4 years married since then. So it's been a while. We met in college.
Yeah,
And-
and I think that's a unique story.
I had been in this afternoon class and he was in the morning class, and he didn't want to go to class in the morning, and his professor was like, you need to come. And we had already all kind of vibed with each other. We knew each other, and this day the professor was late, and we hear these like, she always used to wear heels. So down the hall we're like, oh, she's probably coming. And this guy walks in with like these cowboy boots and, like coming in, and we're like, is he our substitute today? Like, what is happening? And, me being me, I'm like, hi, welcome to our class. And he gives me this stare of like, this girl. And I was like, okay, I was just trying to be nice. And then since then, I don't know, I guess we never talked in class, but.
No, I beg to differ. It's a bit different. See, yes, it's correct. I walked into class, but I didn't want to deal with anyone anymore. I was like, this is the last class I'm ever going to take in college. I'm not going back. I just want to be here to fulfill the teacher, what she required of me. And I was like, I'm so over this. I brought in my hoodie. I had it over my head, put my backpack down on my table, sat down, and I just like put myself in a corner because I didn't want to deal with nobody. And out of the corner, I see four little girls, not little girls, but some ladies giggling. And Kim just kind of went, hi, really loud on top of all the classmates, in front of all the classmates and all that. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, hi. And then I was like,
Not very awkwardly too. Hi.
yeah. So that was how we met.
Yeah, but we didn't start dating till later on. We finished the semester, and I remember the last class, he was like, do you want to stay and talk and have a drink? And I was like, do you girls want to stay and have a drink? Because I didn't think it was like personally to me. I think it was just like for all of us to hang out. And that was the first time I felt like he had more of an interest. But we didn't actually start talking until like 6-8 months later. I had posted a Snapchat of doing my hair, and he's like, where are you going? What are you getting ready for? And the only conversations we had until then was like, hey, how are you doing? Good, thanks. And that was about it. So I was like, it's gonna be my cousin's birthday. All my family's gonna be there, but you're welcome to come, And he was like, okay, send me your address. I can pick you up. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know this guy. Like, what do you mean pick me up? Like, there was no like building up to that moment. It was just kind of like slap in the face moment. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, he's going to pick me up. He gets there like so quick. And I was like trying to change outfits. I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to greet him? That was the only thing I could think of. Am I going to give him a handshake? Is that like too formal? Am I going to give him a hug? Is that like too like, out there? Like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to say hi? Like, I don't know. And when I'm walking to him outside in the car, he's telling me, well, where do you live? And I was like, just wait for me in the corner by the liquor store. Because I was like, I don't know this guy. Like, I don't want him to know where I live. And I walk out, and I remember, has a Genesis car, and he has the 2 doors out. He's playing this loud country, like, love song. I could smell his cologne, like, down the street. And I'm walking towards him, and the entire time I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to greet him? Like, what am I going to do? And I remember as I'm getting closer to him, he just gives me the biggest bear hug that I had ever received. And he just like held me, and I was like, oh, like I was not expecting that. And we get in the car, and he's driving so fast. And in my mind, I'm like, I cannot show weakness. I cannot show him I'm nervous that he's driving fast. So the whole time I'm just like, and he's there, like zoom, 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 zoom. Yeah. We get to the restaurant, and my entire family's there. I mean, my parents, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, and if anybody knows us, they know I have a huge family. So we walk in, and the entire time, my mom gives me this stare like, you're dating someone? Like, who is this guy? We've never heard of him. And I wouldn't typically bring guys home unless it was like super formal. And we walked in and I was like, oh man, like, should I done this, And instantly him and my dad just start talking. And it almost was like if they were on a date. Like, let's talk about the military, and let's talk about the ocean, and let's talk about space, and let's talk about, And me and my mom are there like, okay, But that was the first time that I was like, wow. Like, I've always wanted someone similar to my dad. Like, I look so much up to my dad that I was like, I really would love someone like him. And I never, knew that of myself. But kind of since then, he never left.
But let me share my side of the story. So, I think she says we really didn't talk. Yeah, maybe she didn't, because she was so shy and she would giggle. So, since we met in communications class, we had to give speeches and improvs and elevator speeches and all kinds of stuff. So, I'm not the type to sit there and write while you're talking. I was the type to look at you. And the times that she was in my group that we had to give each other speeches, I would just sit there and be like this.
No, he was like this, just staring at me. And I'm like, can you stop? Like, can you not look deep into my soul?
And she would mess up her speech completely. And the teacher is watching this. And so I got into that, okay, I'm going to mess with her today, type thing. And there was little hints here and there. She would, with her little posse with friends and stuff, they would like talk and stuff like that. And they would purposely sit us down together. Like for our final, we went out to a restaurant and basically turned in some paperwork, was it?
Yeah, we were all meeting there, and I was out late from work, and I texted my friends, and I said, hey, girls, I'm going to be there like a few minutes late. Just save me a seat. And they're like, yeah, we have a seat for you already. Yeah. I get there, and
right next to me.
Only chair available that they had saved me was right next to him all the way at the end.
On purpose.
And I was like, okay, this is awkward.
So there was a little bit more than she says, oh, we never talked and all that. Maybe not too much to each other, but her friends like to talk, apparently. They were in communications, right? In communication with each other. So
that's how we met. The first date we had, I remember he went up, he texted me and he was like, I would like to ask your parents. And he walks up to my door, and my dad's always at work. And so my mom answers, and I hear him telling my mom, like, would you be okay if I take your daughter out on a date? And my mom's like, yeah, like, but that felt so nice in me that I was like, wow, like he respects my mom and dad. Like he respects enough to come in and introduce himself and say hi, and this is me, and this is, what I would like to do. And that was the first time that had ever happened. And I really respected that of him, that he would initiate that way in our relationship. And so my parents would see those things and were like, wow, not only was he like military and very like, firm, but he was also this very big teddy bear. And so it's kind of just been the best memories of dating. I think it's just been all these random adventures we've done. I think it's just been like ups and downs, but like I grew up in a very conservative home. And so a lot of things, we would go to like amusement parks, and the circus. But since we started dating, it was like, I think one of our first dates was like a 12-hour fishing trip. And that I will never forget, because I've never been fishing. I've never been in deep sea. And it was like, okay, like, let's try it, Another one was like hiking, where literally I was like a sheep on the mountain trying not to fall off. And at the end was a beautiful waterfall. And it was like continuous adventures like these that I was like, wow, like he actually wants to like spend this time with me and share these moments with me. And that meant a lot.
Don't forget the what is it?
The tram.
The tram
out
in, where is that? Palm Springs. The Palm Springs tram. Now, I didn't know she was afraid of heights. And the funniest thing, I don't know what came over me, But as you go into the tram, where the tram is waiting for you to go up the mountain, people are taking pictures, and it's a, blue or black, what is it, a blue or green screen in the background. And she asked, oh, why are they doing that? And I'm like, well, since we're going up there and something can happen, or the emergencies, they want to have a picture of every single person that is up there in case they have to,
the reason I asked was because there was an ambulance and a fire truck right outside. And so it was a big window, and you could see the trams going up, like from where we were sitting. And there was a big fire truck and a big, there was a whole, emergency personnel. And so when they're taking the pictures, I couldn't see where they were taking the pictures. You only saw the flash. And so, I'm a little nervous because I'm like, oh man, these trams at some point kind of dip to go into the next one. And I was like, why are they taking pictures? In my innocence, in my nervousness. And there he goes, well, what if something happens? What if it falls? What if we get up there and something occurs? Like, they need to know what, how you look, what you were wearing, who's up there. And I'm like, oh my God, is it that extremely dangerous? So the whole time we're in this tram, I'm like holding on for dear life from him.
Swinging and the floor rotates. So
and the windows were open. So it was rotating, windows open, so you could literally see the floor, the mountain. And I'm just holding on to him, just praying, Lord, please don't let me go this way. My parents need me.
And it got worse once we hit the little bump. It rocked back and forth. The death grip, nails, everything were on there.
But I think that those moments...
But you didn't say what happened on the top once we got up there.
Oh, once we got to the top, we get off, and they go, oh, do you have your ticket? And I was like, yeah, the one they gave us in the bottom. And they're like, well, you're welcome to buy all of these pictures. And I was like, buy the pictures? What do you mean buy the pictures? And then I'm like, what do you mean? These were for as a souvenir? These were because something could happen. And he was like, oh, I was just kidding. And I was like, I cannot with you. I was so, it was funny, but at the same time, it was almost like, it could have been such a different experience if you didn't say that. But I think in almost every experience we went through, it was always out of my comfort zone. And I had never really seen life that way. And he was all about that. He was all about, let's go and do it. Let's go and even if we don't know exactly where we're end, let's go and find out. Let's go see. Let's go for a drive. Let's, one of our favorite things dating was driving up this road, and it would just lead into the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But you could see the stars, so beautiful. And I remember that it was always just such a beautiful place to come and talk and just kind of see, how was your week? How are you doing? And it was away from everything. It was away from everyone. And I genuinely, those are some of the best memories, because it was just, I want to get to know you for who you are. And that's where hearing all of his military stories, I was like, okay, you're not just a goofball, but you're also such a strong man. And it just, my whole perspective of what I wanted in life just became so different. So,
what about the proposal story?
That proposal story is so much.
Well, I'll leave this one.
I guess it's more on you. Yeah.
So I knew. Okay, so the idea came that I wanted to marry her about a year before. So I guess a year before, I was just playing with the idea and how things are, trying to figure out what are the family traditions of Hispanics and stuff like that. And
he's asking my mom, what is your tradition when someone gets engaged? And my mom was born and raised in Mexico in a very small little, country. Very country style. And so she goes, well, in my days, they used to have to bring, livestock and, cows or,
and
packages of rice
grains,
and
grains,
a whole bunch of different things. And so he's like, oh, yeah? So, what would I have to bring? And my mom's like, ha, 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 well, get me 3 cows. And the whole time she's laughing, ha, ha, ha.
Right.
But after that, every time we went out somewhere and he saw a cow, he would say, that's the cow your mom wants. That's the cow your mom wants. And I'm like, you understand she was kidding, right? Like, she would never trade me for a cow. Like, but he always had that in his mind of what to do.
But so fast forward from all that, when it came down to was their workhouse. I did go to slaughterhouse and got, 2 cows?
Yeah, you got a goat, a sheep,
goat, a pig,
yeah,
turkeys, right, turkeys and stuff like that. And throughout the time, she got her livestock. So, but the biggest thing about the proposal was that I couldn't figure out what date or stuff like that. I had talked to her dad, and we're trying to figure out when to do it and stuff like that. Everybody was on board. We couldn't tell her mom or her sister because we knew already that it's going to get to her. So we didn't say anything to anyone. And I knew that his birthday was coming up, and he said, well, why don't you just do it at my birthday party? We'll schedule, we'll reserve a spot at the park. We'll bring tents and all that, and we'll have food already there and stuff like that, and just start inviting people. So we did. Well, it was my turn to cook that day. Usually I'm cooking the meat and steaks and all that. But that day, I was so nervous that I kept leaving the tongs inside the grill, and each time I would go get them, I would burn my hand. And each time I would drop them onto the floor, right? And this happened several times. Now, Kim's mom comes up and asks, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then it just got really bad where my hand was burned and just things were going on. And when
I also have a really big family. My side of the family, my mom's the eldest of 11, and they all have children that have children. And so we're a huge family. And so prior to that date, he had been telling me, like, oh, can I invite so-and-so to your dad's party? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, everyone's welcomed, you know? And for those that know us, like, they know our parties are, like, even if we say it's something small, it's always like 100 plus people. And so when he was telling me, I was like, of course, like, invite him to come over. Like, we'd love to have them. And that day just never came through my mind. You know, he was saying, one of my friend's girlfriend is learning photography, and she would love to take pictures of our dog. And I mean, if you know anything of us, our dog Moses is like our child. Like, he is in everything. He goes to trips with us. He's just like our baby. And so I was like, oh my God, yes, tell her to come. Like, I'm going to buy him an outfit. Like, we could take pictures. We can do all of these things. And so in my mind, it was like, oh, this photographer's coming to take pictures of our dog. And the day comes and they're arriving and I'm like nothing, you know? I'm like, hi, like, welcome, guys. And I was wearing, you know, something to cover like my clothes because we were serving, I was serving food that day. And so when we're going to cut the cake, everyone's gathering on that table. And I mean, this is like over 100 people. And they're gathering around the table. And so in my head, I was like, let me go and clean. Like, while everybody's over there, let me quickly just clean. And I remember he goes up to me, he goes, come over here. And I was like, no, I have to clean. And he grabs me by my hand and he's like, you need to come and hear what your dad has to say. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it just kind of was like, I've never been spoken to like this. Like, okay. And so he holds my hand and he's like almost shaking. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, why is he like this, you know? And so we're towards the back of all of this group. And my dad, you know, starts saying all of these nice things. And he's just like, I just want to thank God for, you know, another year and just being surrounded by our family and friends. He calls my grandmother up next to him. He calls all my older aunts, my mom, my sister, you know. So everyone's up in the front where the table is. And then he starts going into how grateful he is for his daughters. And so I'm like, oh, that's sweet, you know. And then he goes, when there also comes a time in a father's, you know, in a father's heart where we have to let go. And, you know, this time has come. And I was still like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And he just goes, I'm going to give the time to Ruben to speak. Mm-hmm. And it's like in my mind, I just remember it as almost like the waters when Moses put, like the stick and the waters just open. Like that is genuinely how I feel. Like everyone just like moved, and I'm here standing with him full of food. Like I'm like covered in all this food, and I'm like, let me take this off. Let me like clean my hands. And we walk up and he just starts talking. And at this time, all my family is like Spanish speaking, and he didn't really speak Spanish. And so he's telling me in English, and all you hear, my aunt is like, say it in Spanish, say it in Spanish. And I just remember at that moment, it just became just him and I. Like, I remember every word. I don't know if he remembers every word, but it was just the sweetest moment for him to notice that family was such a big part of who I am, and to include them in that moment, to have spoken to my father and gotten that approval and had him be part of that. I wouldn't have changed it, I wouldn't have wanted a better, dress or clean hands. It would have just like, that was exactly what I needed. And what made it so special was that I had no idea.
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit chaotic, a little burnt hands that day.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty nice proposal. What about the wedding now? So
we're planning our wedding. And there was a lot of like ups and downs. And so we were like, you know what? My perspective was different at that time. And he continuously would tell me, this is our wedding. This is for you and I. This is our moment. This is, we can't try and please everybody. This is for us. And I had a really hard time with that. And I said, you know what? I need to see your perspective. I need to understand that this is about us. And we eloped, and I think the elopement, we planned it within like a month.
Right.
And so
right, but we had been trying to, our first date was what, in November or December time to get married?
Yeah, we had put a date.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And we were finally, I told him and I said, my ideal thing would be the date we started dating. And the day you met my family, the day that kind of started this whole journey. Mm-hmm. And so that date landed, I think, on a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And I said, let's get married on Wednesday. Yeah. Let's go to Hawaii. Let's get married. And I remember that I told him and I said, all I care is that my dad walks me to you. Mm-hmm. And I want to give that respect to my dad and my mom. And I said, I don't care for anybody else. I just want that. I want them to know that I appreciate them raising me, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And I remember that it was such an intimate moment. We got married on Secret Cove, and it was the sweetest thing because I remember the officiant kind of like blew the shell, and he says, I blow it 4 times because we're letting know the east, the west, the south, and the east that there is a union happening. Mm-hmm. And there were so many beautiful moments in that ceremony that he was like, you're putting the lei on each other as a significance of unity, and that you're giving each other to, and there were so many things that I was like, wow, like, this is our moment,
It was nice. I mean, I think that was what we needed ourselves. And I feel like a lot of the times people are just too stressed out about a wedding or about making everybody happy. And I think this was just for us and our immediate family.
Yeah. And then we stayed there.
And we stayed there
for our honeymoon. And our parents, my parents, the next day after the wedding, he was like, I want to make this whole meal for them. And he cooked this whole meal, this whole barbecue. We had it at the hotel. And then from there, he was like, okay, well, now we're going off to our honeymoon, like, bye, Yeah. But to me, it was so sweet to feel that even then he still wanted to give tribute to my parents and, just appreciate who they were. And so moving from that, we've had so many transitions in our life in the past 4 years. There's been so much change, and God allowed for us to purchase our home in the city of Tehachapi. And so that, again, blew me off completely from my norm, completely out of my comfort zone. But again, it gave me a realization of like, this is my husband, this is my family, this is what I need to seek for the best. And now I'm about 2 to 3 hours away from my family, but it's like, I know that they're gonna want at the end of the day the best for me. And the best for me is nurturing my marriage, is nurturing the place that I want to call home. And along with moving to Tehachapi, I've always been wanting that wedding, that going down the aisle and my aunts and my uncles and our friends. And, I always tell him and I make fun of him and I'm like, are you going to cry when you see me in my dress? And I'm like, you better cry or I'm going to go down and back up. But I've always, had that desire in my heart. And being raised in church was always, I had that mental dream and, about doing this. And when we purchased our home, it was like, all the savings went there. And I was like, well, maybe it's not our time. Maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe I just have to keep moving forward. But to our surprise, I met someone in Tehachapi that owns a garden. And she was like, hey, we're going to be doing a giveaway. Like, why don't you guys, join? Like, just enter. And I was like, okay. So I entered and I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just entered and almost on a daily basis, I was checking it. Like, oh my God, did I win? Did I win? And I got to a point where it was like a 2-month time frame. And so the last week I was like, I just can't do this to myself. Like, out of thousands of people, I can't just hold my breath and I can't put too much hope in me. And I always remember praying to God, like, God, if this is our moment, then you're going to allow it. And if it's not, then I have to understand. And I remember we were sitting down at my parents' dining table, and my phone's like, ding, 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 ding. And I was like, oh, my God, it's like 11 p.m.
And I'm like, who's texting
And he's
you
like,
at this
who's
time?
texting you? And I was like, I don't know. And I pick up my phone, and it was alive, and they were saying, congratulations, Kimberly. And I was like, what? And I remember I start crying. I'm like, we're getting married. We're getting married.
She didn't say anything. I think she's lost it. What's wrong with her?
And he's like,
are you okay?
we are married. And my dad's like,
exactly.
are you okay? And my mom's looking at me like so worried. And I'm like, no, like we won it. We're getting married. And he was like, are you sure it's not a scam? And I was like, no, I met this person. I know who she is. I've seen her location. Like, this is a real thing. And that just gave me that spark of just like so excited for the wedding. I mean, we've gone through such a journey, dating, being engaged, being married, moving. I mean, throughout the years, it's been such an adventure. And now to be able to have a wedding, it's beautiful because it's like I want to just say thank you and glory first to God for allowing us to be together and for who we are in our marriage and our story, but also to acknowledge everyone in our surroundings that has played a part in our marriage and has played a part in those difficult times when they've been able to lend us a word of wisdom or a word of advice or, hey, we're here for you guys, And I really take this as not just us as a wedding, but also being able to honor all these people that have been part of our lives throughout these whole seasons. And so I feel like that's what I define love as. It's just, first, just having God in the center of it all, having his peace, having his love, having his grace. And I think that's how we've been able to maintain ourselves in this marriage is just reminding myself, like I've told him 3 times, God, deep breath, I need to be patient, and I think that's what genuinely I feel is love, is just allowing God to be God in our lives and, loving him for who he is and allowing myself to be me, and giving him everything that I want. And I think that's something I really understood is if I want patience, then I need to give patience. If I want him to be romantic, then I need to be romantic, and so it's a lot of give and take for sure.
Right. Love for me is family. I think that's one of the biggest things. Family, spending time with people. I think the biggest thing was just her support would define love for me. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, but I think it's just having someone that stands by you constantly. As a military person or retired military, we tend to be a little bit rough around the edges, but if she can withstand all that, and stand next to me, I think that's speaks words, 1,000 words. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And that's our love story.